What's up, everybody? Well, then there were just two. We were here last week, sitting similar spots, and we were talking about a whole slew of Level 1 playoff games in the WIA, the first week of the playoffs, and we've got just two left here in Level 2. It was a rough Friday night around here as we kind of watched the scores roll in and went, things are getting a little slimmer
It
here.
just tells you how difficult it is to win once you get to playoffs. I mean, it's like I say, you can throw out season records. Doesn't matter if you're 9-0, 6-3. It just doesn't matter. There's so many variables that go into winning and being a good playoff team that records don't mean a whole lot. And we saw that the other night as we had some lower seeds go and beat higher seeds, and we also had some predictable things going on. Some seeds that were higher that we thought would take care of business, and they did, and Broadhead Judah certainly one of those.
Yep, two left. We got Milton and Broadhead Judah in our coverage area. So we'll just take a few minutes to break down each of their matchups. I think we start probably in Milton would be a good place to start.
Yep, the Redhawks.
I was over there Friday night. They beat Watertown 21-18. A real interesting game. They were down 12-0 in the first half, and I told people I wasn't really that concerned, and I don't know if they were either. It didn't seem like there was a whole lot of panic going on, and they scored it before halftime, scored right out of halftime, and they were able to hang on there at the end. Not their most pristine game, but a very Milton-like game. They used their defense. They controlled some clock. They hit some big passes when they needed to, which is pretty much what this team's been about all year.
Yeah, and I talked to Bill O'Leary this morning, and Bill never at a loss for words. He's an excitable guy, and he tells it like it is, and he knows they've got a huge challenge ahead of them going up to Waunakee on Friday night. I mean, let's face it, Waunakee's been one of the most dominant Division II, Division III programs in the state in the last decade, and Pat Rice has done a phenomenal job with that program. And Bill said, we've got to go up there, eliminate mistakes, and more importantly, we've got to keep them from, running up the score, so to speak. And they run that Wildcat offense, and Bill said, if we're not able to, keep that in check, he said, it could be a long night.
It was exactly 8 weeks ago that they faced the same Waunakee team, and they lost 31-3. So, you can say, and they have, it's been 8 weeks. A lot of things have changed since then, but you still have to look back on what happened in the regular season and think about, okay, what went wrong there? And obviously they let in 14 points in the fourth quarter that made that look a little more lopsided than it was. But they only scored 3 points.
Yeah.
So
that's what you have to do. You have to break that down game, whether it's possession by possession or quarter by quarter, however you want to do it. But and that's what they took from that is that it was 17-3. It got away from us a little bit in the fourth, but I look at Milton the same way you look at them playing Monona Grove the last few years. They get blown out in they get blown out in the playoffs last year at Monona Grove. They lose to them in a close game during the regular season. They come back heavily, underdog this year against Monona Grove and beat them 10-3 in overtime. So again, we've said this all year. Particularly which Milton offense are you going to see? Are you going to see one that's capable of putting up 20 points that might be enough the way that defense is played? Or are they going to struggle moving the ball, get behind early, and then they're forced to do some things offensively they're not comfortable doing?
And they were able last week to get the Westrick Weber Paul combo working. 5 for over 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. If you can have plays like that here and there, they're not going to pass 30 times a game. That's just not what they're going to do. But if you hit the ones that you have, then maybe anything can happen. And they forced a couple turnovers last week.
And that's what Bill talked about. He says, Waunakee is so good at taking advantage of the mistakes that you make. And he said, until you quit making mistakes, they're going to continue to take advantage. So he says, we can't have any mistakes, whether it's penalties, turnovers, whatever it might be. He says, we've got to minimize our penalties. And if we can do that, we think we can do things defensively by putting an extra couple of guys in the box. We think we can stop them and stop the Wildcat where they're not running wild on them.
What do you think?
I would have to say Waunakee's favorite. I think I picked 21-13 or 21-14 in my football weekend. But again, which Milton team shows up? The A team that showed up 2 weeks ago and beat Monona Grove and won a Badger Conference title, or is it the team that showed up in week 2 and struggled offensively, got behind the 8 ball, and just had no way of coming back?
Yep. The other game, I'll be over in Broadhead. Broadhead Judah hosting Marshall. Another 2-3 game, seed-wise. What do you know about Marshall?
Marshall starts kind of like with Milton. Ty DeForest, their quarterback, is the all-everything guy that makes that offense go. They average about 35 points a game. DeForest has already got some looks from Division I offers. One of them was from, I believe, Illinois State or Southern Illinois, one of those two. Wisconsin has offered him to come on as a preferred walk-on. So obviously a kid that's got talent. You know, if Wisconsin's asking you to come play for him, whether it's quarterback or, you know, you switch him to cornerback, whatever it might be, he obviously can play. You know, I think for them, you shut him down, you got a chance to win. I think the advantage that Broadhead Judah has is up front. I don't think by any means Marshall's seen anybody with the size that Broadhead Judah has with Maurer and Reeve Lincoln and Body and those kids up front. I think that's to their advantage if they can control clock. If they get behind and DeForest does some things, I don't think Broadhead Judah is real comfortable throwing and coming from behind. They'd like to control clock. Well, I think I said in the preview, the scoreboard operator is probably going to be busy because they average about 80 points between them. So it may be the first team to 30 wins the game, and hopefully it's the Cardinals.
I'm not so sure
because they're both Cardinals. So hopefully it's Broadhead Judah.
I'm not sure there's going to be a lot of points put up. And when they looked, Marshall's only loss I think was 17-10
to Cambridge. Yeah,
I think when the better teams play each other and those defenses really come through, we could see something like a 21-17 or.
Yep.
21-20 or something like that.
Well, and I think a lot of times when you look, especially with Broadhead, I mean, nothing against the Turners, the Parkviews, the Palmyra, but that's where that's where you pad your stats. You know, and if you're scoring 45 points a game against those teams and you're playing them 3 times, you know, that makes your stats look a little bit, you know, gaudier than they would be normally. And, you know, obviously Broadhead Judah's not going to put up the kind of numbers they put up against those teams against a very good defensive Marshall team. So you could be right. It could be, you know, a close one-possession game. And like I say, I think Broadhead Judah gets it done up front on the line.
And those guys have powered the way to what could be 2 1,000-yard rushers,
right,
which is pretty impressive. Griffin Day, I think I was looking, he's already there.
He's there.
I think Mitch Johnson
needs 82 yards. 82 yards, yeah.
So that's when you can have 2 of those guys. That's
pretty impressive, yeah.
So we'll see if they can get that thing rolling. They did, you know, the game I saw them play against Bigfoot. Bigfoot stacked the box, and they said, "We don't care. We're just going to run it right down your throat anyway." Yep. And they were able to do that. So maybe they can do that again.
You know, and it could come down to, you know, who does Marshall play during the year, and who is Broadhead Judah playing during the year. You know, Marshall's coming off a win over River Valley. Broadhead Judah beat River Valley, so they've got some familiarity there. But
Jefferson, you can sort of Marshall beat Jefferson 28-21.
Right. I think more than anything, it comes down to Broadhead Judah's playing at home. You know, really, they've been going pretty well since the Clinton loss. I mean, they've played pretty dominating football since then, and at home, again with those big kids, I like Broadhead Judah to come out of there with a win.
We'll have coverage from both of those games Friday night. You can follow along on Twitter, and we'll have it in Saturday's paper, obviously, and we'll continue to follow these teams as long as they're alive. And, you know, we'll see you guys here next time.
Next time. Have a good day, everybody. Bang.